tortured. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland father, wrongly deported and locked inside one of the world's most feared prisons, revealing shocking allegations of abuse. He says it began just minutes after this moment, his arrival at El Salvador's Terrorism Confinement Center, or CCOT, a place shrouded in secrecy and known for its brutal tactics. In a new federal court filing, Garcia describing a nightmare, stripped naked, beaten, forced to kneel for hours, guards striking anyone who moved. And in just 2 weeks, he says he lost 31 pounds. Garcia is believed to be the only person ever to leave CCOT. Our David Culver, who twice over the past year was granted unprecedented access to the prison, will join us live in just a moment with what his sources are saying about these new allegations. But first, one of the lawyers who detailed Abrego Garcia's account of torture in that new filing, joining us now, Reena Gandhi, an attorney for Garcia. So, Reena, we're hearing this account, Abrego Garcia sharing it directly with your team. What stands out the most to you?
I think for me what stands out is the distinction between how he was treated initially when he got there and once it became clear that his case was going to be a big deal and he got moved. Think about those who are there improperly just like him, who have not been called attention to and have not been moved.
Tell us a little bit more about it, that it got better?
As described in the filing and by him, the abuse that he suffered improved in the Centro Detention Center, the secondary location he was moved to.
So he claims that he was denied bathroom access and was forced to soil himself, that he was kicked and hit so much that he had visible bruises and lumps on his body. Have you been able to verify what Abrego Garcia is telling you?
At this time, we've spoken with him, and we leave it to government investigators to determine otherwise, but I believe my client.
So you've now detailed this in 40 pages in court filings. What does Kilmar Abrego Garcia hope will come from sharing his story?
I think it's incredibly brave to share this kind of information, knowing and hearing that our government has clearly stated they intend to send him back. I am very grateful for him sharing this information and how it may help many, many others.
He said that he saw others in nearby cells violently harming each other, that he heard screams from people throughout the night. How is he handling this now?
I think we can only hope for his safe release here in Maryland with his family and seek the comfort of his family and professionals. I cannot imagine how difficult it will be to live through that and how much help he will need and support from the community.
As you mentioned, the president is threatening to send him back. Is he worried that's going to happen?
I think we all have to be worried about that. This government has shown that they're willing to ignore court orders, and I do not think that we should rest easy and assume that that is not a possibility.
Reena Gandhi, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's go now to our David Culver, whose groundbreaking reporting is directly cited in that latest court filing, first reported on Outfront. David, uncovering how prisoners are confined for nearly 24 hours a day, deprived of any time outside their cells and denied access to books. What are your sources telling you within El Salvador's government, and do they worry about these details surfacing?
First, publicly, Brianna, it's not surprising, but they're not making any comment on this. What I'm hearing from folks who are close with the leadership, and President Bukele in particular, is that he's really unfazed by anything that comes from international attention that may be negative towards CCOT or towards how prisoners are treated there. I mean, they're used to it in many ways, but at the same time, his focus is on keeping that allegiance and alliance with President Trump, and he has sustained that so far. Now, what is really interesting to me is they admit that they have taken people who are innocent into custody. They've told us that, and President Bukele has admitted that. He says thousands of people, more than 7,000 was the latest count that I've heard, and they have released those individuals. Basically, they excuse it as collateral damage in trying to clean up the country and turn it around. the harshness is also something they're very proud of. And people in El Salvador are as well. They say that's how you really end this brutality of MS-13 that had its grip on the country. What stands out, though, and you were talking about this with Rina, is the level of torture. And that is something that really changes from a strict discipline militant-like order to a state of abuse.
This is Abrego Garcia's account of what happened, how he was treated when he was there. You have been granted rare, unprecedented access to CCOT twice this year. You've reported extensively on it. Is what he's talking about tracking with what you have heard about the general treatment of inmates there?
So you mentioned the 40 pages of that filing. I went through the 40 pages and I focused really on that conditions. And you mentioned that one example where he said from 9 p.m. until 6 a.m. in the morning, he was forced to kneel. If they moved at all, they were beaten. He then soiled himself because they weren't allowed to use the restroom. He describes hearing the screams throughout the night. Now you got to remember, this is a facility that we've shown, and you're probably seeing some of the images, that 24/7 they have lights on too. So those were pretty haunting and chilling to hear. What stands out to me is we have heard from the prison director directly, who toured me through there not once but twice, and he made it very clear that prison guards are in control, and this seems to contradict that, because if prisoners are going after each other, they're supposed to be sent to the solitary confinement, and that's supposed to stop right away. But it seems as though from this account, from this filing, it was continuous.
He is believed to be the first person ever released from CCOT, right? We don't get accounts because people don't get out to give them. Do you think these revelations could put pressure on Trump officials to stop endorsing CCOT, and also international pressure on Venezuela for how they are doing this?
If you look at the relationship between President Trump and President Bukele, No worries. Yeah, and President Bukele is really focused on keeping that relationship intact. So I don't think, I think what you're going to see here essentially, Brianna, is they're going to say Abrego Garcia is lying, that this is one person's account. Don't believe it. He's a criminal. Bukele has even called him a terrorist in the Oval Office twice when he was sitting with President Trump, and they're going to likely stick to that labeling. Now, to your point, this is the only person that we have ever heard from who has left CCOT. In fact, Abrego Garcia in this filing, Brianna, says as he stepped off the plane, he said he was the first person on March 15th to land in San Salvador and to be escorted off the plane. He was told by a prison guard, once you enter CCOT, you never leave. And so that was what he was expecting, and that's what we have always heard. So to hear his account is certainly unusual, and it's rare, and it's really an opportunity to understand what it's like behind bars there. That said, I don't think this is going to dissuade them from how they're currently moving forward with this. I mean, you look at that filing, and it does suggest that they're pushing forward to keep this facility going. What is interesting, though, Brianna, is that the fact that they admitted lowering basically the security that he was in and moving him to another prison, that is significant, because you do not take gang members, as they tell me, out of that prison and put him in this lower prison. That suggests he is not a gang member, and it really kind of contradicts what the government's saying here. Also, by the way, they said 8 others were in his cell who were determined not to be gang members. That, according to the filing. The question is, where are they?
Very good question. David Culver, as always, thank you so much for your reporting on this.